of things. So let's start our practice here about organizing files. And it's probably one of the most important things you can do on your computers. If you can find stuff, your life becomes a little bit easier. And some people are better at finding things than others. It's just sometimes it's personality. But I'm going to teach you a little bit about what the technology is around files, folders, drives on both Macs and PCs. And we'll look at our Windows PC. We'll look at a Mac tool because they come with built-in tools to help you search and sort and some of the things that help you. Now, everybody's got a system or they don't have a system. Having a system for organizing makes life a little bit easier. It's kind of like if you have a kitchen and you have a tray in your kitchen, you've got a tray for the knives, a tray for the forks, tray for the spoons. Some people have those. Other people just throw all their silverware into one drawer and they just scramble, scrabble through it to find what they need when they need a utensil. So organizing files and folders is not much different than organizing things in the rest of your life. Is that if you are good at organizing and you have a system for how you think about organizing, it's just that it's a computer, and that may intimidate you or may cause a brain block, when it comes to computers, but it's just like doing things in real life. Windows has a tool that's built in called File Explorer, and that's how you look at all of your files. Oh, sorry, my mouse, I tapped it and advanced a slide. Macs have a tool called Finder. The good news is a file is a file, no matter what computer it's on. So it doesn't matter if a file is on your Mac or you're in a cloud or on an iPad, it's a file, no matter where it is, because that's what contains data in our computers. That's what the information is. Even applications are files as well. So a file can be a piece of data like a text file, like MS Word, Microsoft Word. It can be an image file like a photo. It can be a video file. It can be an audio file, be an amplifier. And files have names associated with them. And so if you're working on a Word document, I could have a file called document, and I'll have a dot in it, and I'll have a docx. Okay. Or I might have an image like a picture, and it'll have a file extension, a name like .jpeg. I might have a video, and it might have an extension MP4. Or I might have a song, and it might have an extension MP3. Now I'm using the word extension here, extension. And why do I use the word extension? Well, you can think of the word extension as just a more technical term for something called a suffix. In all of file names that you see on computers, there is a dot. Okay, there's a dot, here's a dot, here's a dot. Now you may or may not always see the dot, but to the right of the dot is something called the file extension. To the left of the dot is whatever you or your application has chosen to name the file. To the right of the dot tells your computer, hey, this is a .docx file. I'm going to use this application called Microsoft Word to open up that particular file. This is a .jpeg file. I'm going to use an application that opens up pictures to look at that file. So all file names have two parts to them. Something to the left of the dot, which you can change, something to the right of the dot, which tells the computer some very important information. Now, how does it get the stuff to the right of the dot? Well, the application like Microsoft Word or your camera or something like PowerPoint or Google Docs or an email, that application creates the file extension automatically. And then you get to save it as with whatever you have on the left of it. So pictures, and we'll talk a little bit about pictures, but pictures really needs their own course, I think, because pictures has a lot to do with what type of pictures your photos you're using. So a picture might have a file name of 37465 whatever jl.jpg. Those file names probably look familiar for you if you've ever looked at files or pictures. Your camera will give it a file name, okay, automatically, but it may not mean anything to you, but it might mean something to the camera. One thing about photo files is that they have something called metadata, and that's data that's about the file. So photo files have this thing called metadata, and it's information like the date, the camera, the location, and other details about the camera, about the actual image file. We don't see that usually, but professional photographers and people that know how to use more advanced tools in the photo editing applications, they can see the metadata that tells them something about a photo. But problem with photo organization, it's different from just general files, is that photos are organized within an application. So if you have a Mac and you're using Apple Photos, your photos are organized within the Photos app on your Mac. If you have a Windows computer, your photos are organized in the Photos folder on your Windows computer. If you use Google or Android, your photos might be organized in Google Photos. And so everybody has their photos organized in different ways. So it's a little bit more challenging to organize photos, but if you get them all in one place, it makes life a little bit easier to organize them. So the best I can tell you to do about photos at first is to get them all in one application. Don't leave them scattered around all over the place. And you can move them around. A photo file is just like any other file. It can be moved. Now, files have locations on your computer. They might be in folders. And that makes life a little bit easier to find them. So one of the things I recommend is that you create folders and put files in folders. A folder is just an empty container. It's like a storage bin, and you can put anything you want into it, okay? And you can have files just stored loose on your disk drive. That's like having the silverware scattered in a drawer. Whereas if you have folders, you have things in specific containers for specific types of work you do. Your computer comes with 4 folders. Both Macs and Windows come standard with a couple of folders. Documents, which is where you will keep most things that you create and use. Photos, which is where all of your photos will end up. Movies, which is where movies that you take with your camera end up. And things you download, okay? You can leave them in downloads, or you can move them to a folder in documents. Now, it's generally best to not create, additional folders other than these, but you can if you want to. The reason is that when you do backups and other types of tools that you might be using on your computer, it's easier if everything's in documents or photos or movies or downloads. But they start you with some folders already. And it's just like the folders look like file folders on a file cabinet. So if you think of your disk drive is sort of like a physical file cabinet. You might have a 1-drawer file cabinet, you might have a 2-drawer, you might have a 4-drawer. And so you've got you've got a physical file cabinet where you can keep files. You can just have stuff loose in there, but one of the easier ways to keep track of files is to put them into folders. And so you can find things, and all the folders have labels. And that's where the terminology came from. It came from offices that used paper documents, paper folders, and physical file cabinets. And that's the logical system that is used on computers for organizing files. So it's just like the old office, only instead of paper, it's electronic. Now, Computers are smart and they have tools that let you sort things automatically. So you can sort by numeric order, alphabetical, you can sort by the type of file, you can sort by the size of a file, you can even look for files based on when they were added or created or modified. All of this information is something your computer tools like File Explorer or Finder can use to sort. So if you're looking at a list of files and you say, well, these don't make any sense, you can just click on the top of a column or click on a sorting icon that will help you sort, so that you can take this mess that you've got of things all jumbled together and organize them all neatly into by similar size or shape or object, whatever you want to do. So sorting tools can help you find things. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Michael is with us from our GetSetUp TA team. He's here to help us out in case we have any technical issues. And for those of you that are just watching from the lounge and not in our Zoom meeting, if you post anything in chat, Michael will take care of getting the question to me if you have a question. You can search for files. Windows and Macs both have search tools that let you search for files. Inside the operating system is a automated tool that both Macs and Windows use. It's called indexing. It goes on in the background all the time. And what happens is that your operating system in your computer is creating an index of all of the file names on your computer, whether it's an application, whether it's a photo, whether it's a document, and they are creating an index. And you can search that index by using the search tools on your computer. In Windows 10, it's in the lower left-hand corner. In Windows 11, there's a search icon on the taskbar. And in Macs, there's a search icon in the upper right. When you click on search, it opens up a open text field, and you can start typing in the name of anything you have on your computer, and it'll see if it can find it. It may also search the web as well. So if you're looking for pizza, or sushi for dinner, you can just use it to search and it'll help you find things. But if you have, say you're a sushi, critic, and you have articles about restaurants that you've had sushi at, that's not a bad job. You can just, it'll find all the articles you have that have sushi in the title. Excuse me. I don't know, has anybody used the search tool to find things on their computer? Yeah, Laura, you have?
Yes.
And what have you used? Can you give us an example of how you might have used it?
No, I just keep, when I get someplace new and can't figure out what to do or looking for something, I press whatever I can. And I do know that that little magnifying glass means that it's going to search for something, or I'm looking for something on something.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of interesting what you'll find if you are good about organizing things and you use things that are consistent in naming information, it becomes really, really fast to find things no matter where they are in your computer. It's kind of like, now email applications have their own organization. So you organize files on your computer, you organize photos within your photos application, and you organize email within your email application. So, but documents and other types of files are things you can use in the file manager. So you won't see emails in the file system of your computer. The only way you'll see emails is in the email application that you use. And you can create folders or what Google calls labels in email. You can create albums in photo applications, and you can create folders for files on your computer. But you can also move photos and other files around on your computer to different places too. Okay, let me get rid of that indexing. Okay, so naming your files is probably one of the techniques you may or may not be using. So every time you create something new, if you're doing something in a word processor, if you're creating a note, if whatever it is you're doing, just create a name for it that makes it easy for you to find. And as you start to use your computer, you may realize you're doing things for particular projects or tasks, or things just have something to do based on when you do them. So having a thought about how you might organize things can make your life a little bit easier. One of the nice things about files is that you can create a name for your file that's really, really long. Let me start typing here as I'm talking. So I'm going to type 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to type get set up organizing files and folders on PCs for Mac and Windows. And I can give a file that name. I can actually make it that long. And if I wanted to, I could even put the date in. I can put 2022. Today's date is 04/28. And I have not used even a quarter of the amount of room I have to create a file name. So when you create names for files, when you save a file, you will start, your computer will tell you, what do you want to call this file? So you can call the file just document1. Okay, so if I just let the computer take its name and it calls it document1 dot, say docx if I'm in Word, that doesn't tell me much about what's inside the document. I know it's just document1. And then the next one becomes document2, document3, document4. That doesn't tell me much. But when you are first saving the file, give it a name. Whenever I do something for GetSetUp, I use the initials GSU at the beginning of the file name, just because I've gotten in the habit of doing that. So I call it GSU, and I'll call it class. I might call it notes, and I'll put the name of the class here. Okay, and that becomes the file name. So when I go to search for it, I can just type in the letters GSU, and it'll start finding every file on my computer that has the letters GSU. That may or may not be very good, but I can also put it in a folder that I call GSU, and then I know that I've got everything in my folder as well. So sometimes it's okay to have something in the folder as well as something in the file name, but having some kind of scheme for your files makes it easier to find them when you're looking for them. So use a long name, use something descriptive, make it alphabetical. You can use it to describe a project or a task or a location. You can use numbers like days, dates and or priority or sequence. That's why books have chapters. Books have page numbers to help you find things, right? So that if you are looking for something on a particular topic in a chapter, you can find a chapter very easily by going to the page number. So we use numbers and letters to find things. We put things in alphabetical order. We sort things by similar objects, types of objects they are. So we might have our pencils and pens in one location on our desk. We might have our cereal in a particular cabinet in the kitchen. We might have our pots and pans organized in a particular way. So we organize things in some ways naturally. Now, it just depends on who you are as a person. I know a lot of people that don't organize anything, and you walk into their home and everything's just sitting out, in cardboard boxes and stacks of paper and stuff like that. So that's more of a personal style as opposed to a technology issue. Okay. And then I know people that love label makers. I don't know if you're If you've ever had a label maker, there are times in my life where I just loved making labels. Then I said, forget it, and I got clear storage boxes to store everything in. Okay, so let's take a look at how you can put these principles into practice. On Windows first, and then we'll take a look at a Mac. Okay, so I'm going to share my Windows screen here. And on Windows, there is a tool that is usually located in the taskbar called the File Explorer. That's this little file icon that my mouse is hovering over. You can get to all of your files by clicking on that. But you can also get to them by clicking on the Start menu and going up to the Documents icon here. Both of them open up File Explorer. On Macs, the tool that opens up your files is called Finder, and it's very similar in what it does. It's just some of the icons and controls are a little bit different. So we'll take a look at that. So if I click on Documents, it opens up the File Explorer tool, but it opens it up to the Documents folder that is on my PC. Okay, it doesn't show me, it opens it up right to Documents on my PC. What's different about clicking File Explorer in the taskbar is just the place it takes you to in your File Explorer. We are looking at a series of file cabinets in an office that basically have different places things are stored. When you click on File Explorer, you go to something called Quick Access. And interesting, when you click on Finder on Mac, it takes you immediately to your recents files and folders. So oddly enough, they work very, very similarly in that sense. Now, when I clicked on File Explorer here, it did not take me to Documents on my PC. This is down here at the bottom. This is where Documents is. It took me to something called Quick Access because Microsoft kind of thinks, and they're generally right, that you probably, when you open up your files, you probably want to get to things you've worked with more frequently and more recently. Just like on a Mac, it thinks you want to work with things you might have worked with more recently. So it just takes you there automatically. But on the left-hand column, you will see different folders and different disk drives that you might have. If you have a OneDrive, your OneDrive icon will show up here, and you'll see folders that are inside your OneDrive. So having a OneDrive icon here is like having a second file cabinet on your computer. You've got this PC, that's the file cabinet that's inside your computer, your disk drive, and you've got OneDrive, that's the file cabinet that's out in the cloud. But you can also make copies of things if you want to keep them on your computer and in the cloud. So things that are on this PC are just on this PC. They're on this PC's disk drive. Things that are in OneDrive are in the cloud, and some of them may also be on my computer. And there's a way, I'll show you how you find out. Quick Access is kind of like a card catalog or a directory of things you might go to frequently. Your Downloads folder is located here. It's a pointer to your Downloads folder. The Pictures folder is located here. It's a pointer to Pictures. The Quick Access is a pointer system. The folders are actually in either your OneDrive or on this PC. Okay, so Quick Access creates a way to have things right at the top, easily to get to them. So if I look at Documents on Quick Access here, it's going to show me Documents. And if I look at Documents, it happens to point to my OneDrive documents. It's exactly the same thing. Documents in Quick Access is my OneDrive documents in OneDrive. They're exactly the same. This shows in the second column, the folders and the files that I have, okay? So you can see I've gotten some folders that I have with names on them, and some folders I have that don't really tell me too much, but some files that are just outside of folders that could be organized a little bit better, okay? So when I'm looking at my files, if I look at my documents here, and I want to create a new folder, I have a menu at the top of my file system called New Folder. Now, Macs, if you're looking at a Mac, you'll have a menu at the top that'll say File and New Folder, a few other things, but you also have icons on your Mac. They just look a little different. We'll take a look at them, but the actions are very much the same. So if I want to create a new folder, I can click on New Folder, and it puts a new folder in my Documents folder. I've created a subfolder, and I can call it GSU test folder, okay, from 0428. And I hit the return key. Now I've got a folder here in GSU test folder. Now it put it at the bottom of the list, but there's a column that I have here. I am looking at something called column view. Now, after I created the folder, some icons changed a little bit here. Some things lighted up. I can move it. I can pin it to quick access, which will put it in this list. I can copy and paste, and I can rename it or delete it. So I have some actions I can do here on the upper right. Michael posted a question in the lounge, looking at my desktop, but I don't see Windows 10. You won't necessarily see anything that says Windows 10 on it, but at the bottom in your taskbar, you'll see something that looks like a file folder. That is the File Explorer icon that you're looking at. We are looking at a tool that is built in to inside of Windows 10. So I can move this folder in a variety of ways. I can drag it and move it in position here if I want to. I can drag it to another location by dragging it to the left. So if I wanted to put that folder in OneDrive, I could put it in OneDrive and drop it in my Documents folder. And you can see how as you move things over, there's a little tiny tooltip to the right of my mouse icon that tells me what I'm doing. It says copy to Documents. I'm going to put it in Documents. Okay, so now I have that folder in Documents. Here's my test folder 0428, but there's nothing in it. So let me go back to this Documents list here. And if I want to drag things into it, this is a GSU Words Basic. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to drag it and drop it on top of my test folder, and it moves it. I'm going to drag this one and move it. Yeah.
When you were on the prior screen, you had something on the right and you had something on the left. Does that mean that the document on the right was not in the left?
You mean this where it says GSU Word Basics, Kathleen?
You had
Or you
just,
mean this list right here?
you dragged it to the left, but it was still listed on the right. The test
Okay.
folder, I think, test folder, I think.
Right, right. So what's happening is that I am moving things into this test folder. They are being moved. So how can you tell if they're being moved? Well, a couple of ways. If I look at this document here, and I'm going to change something in my view here. I don't want you to see this quite yet. I'm going to show you that in a minute. It's on the right, and it's in the left folder that I have selected on the left. So the left shows me it's in Documents, and that's where that file is located. Okay, it's on the left is the Documents, and on the right is where I see the file. If I go to a different folder, like my desktop, for example, though there's nothing on my desktop. Okay. But if I go to this documents folder, I see the folders I have in documents. And I also see any documents or files that are not in folders as well. So I'm seeing a list of things that I have inside the folder that I have selected on the left.
So you basically click documents on the left and everything on the right that's in documents comes in?
Yes, you'll see everything that's inside of that folder. It's like opening up a drawer to a file cabinet and seeing what's inside that drawer. If I click on the documents drawer, I will see what's inside the documents drawer.
And if you move something like, say, whatever, Bob's one book notebook over there, where does it go? Oh, you moved it. Okay, okay, the documents on the top are the same as the documents on the bottom?
The documents on the top is quick access. It's a
Oh,
pointer.
okay, oh, right.
It points to documents on my OneDrive, okay? So
Okay.
I have documents in my OneDrive. So I'm working essentially in the same location. I just that quick access is a short list of things that I can get to quickly.
Okay, I think I'm clearer.
What are,
Thank you.
what are the pins for on our,
I'm sorry, the pins?
yeah, right there, the gray pins up and down
Right
there.
here.
Yeah.
These are things that I have pinned to quick access, or Microsoft has, so that I can find them in the quick access list. So say I work on a document or a folder a lot, and there's a couple of ways to get to it. I could go and open up the File Explorer. I can open up documents. I can open a subfolder. I can open the subfolder, and eventually I might get to that document. But say I want to get to something quickly, I can take this document, and I think I don't know if I can do it with a document. I think I can do it with a folder. Okay, so with a folder, let's call this, here's this test folder here. It's in my OneDrive document. So it's a subfolder. It's in OneDrive. It's in documents, and I want to pin it. So I can right click on it, and here it says pin to quick access. And if I pin it to quick access, it now shows up in this quick access list with a little pin next to it. So if there's folders you work with frequently, you can pin them to your quick access list. It just makes it easier for you to find things if you want to do that. That's all it's there for.
I've never pinned anything, but I see mine, it's only your 4 basic folders: desktop, download, documents, and pictures. I guess they're automatically pinned.
It automatically pins a few of them, yes. So it starts out thinking, hey, you probably want to get to downloads quickly. You probably want to get to pictures quickly. You probably want to get to your desktop quickly, and you probably want to get to your documents. So it automatically has those pinned if you want to. If you can leave them there if you want to, or you can remove them. If you want to remove something that you have pinned, you can unpin it from quick access. But that doesn't delete the folder. All it does is takes it out of this quick access list. So this quick access list is just a list of folders and locations that you might want to get to quickly so that you can see them at the top, and as opposed to having to drill down. Now, the interesting about quick access about folders is that there's actually a fairy tale that created a name for a technology on computers. And for those of you that know Hansel and Gretel, you may remember that when they went into the forest, they left a series of breadcrumbs to find their way back. Well, breadcrumbs are used in computers a lot. It's called a breadcrumb because it basically tells you, it gives you a trail backwards. In File Explorer and on Macs, there's this area that shows you where you are. This shows me that I'm inside the GSU test folder, and that is a subfolder of documents, and that is located in my OneDrive personal account. So if I wanted to go back in my breadcrumb, I can go from the GSU test folder to documents. And if I open up another folder like GSU classes, it shows me that that's my new breadcrumb. So it shows me on my trail that I can go backwards in just by using that. So I can go forward and backwards, because you can have folders within folders within folders. Folders don't take up any room on a computer. They're just basically an empty container, and it's electronic, so it doesn't have anything physical. Now, if you're looking at files, there's a couple of things you can do. Okay, so this is where I keep my descriptions of classes that I write for GetSetUp whenever they need descriptions. Okay, so I'm looking at, I have a icon here called View. I have a little tab called Home. The files don't change when you go from Home to View, but the ribbon changes. Okay. And so the ribbon lets me change how I want to view my files in that folder. So I can make them large icons, or extra large, or medium, or small, or put them in a list, or have a list with details. The details list shows status, date modified, and type. And the status indicator tells you if something in your OneDrive, not for normal, not for files on your computer, but say you have something in your OneDrive and you want to know, do I have that just in OneDrive, or do I have that on OneDrive and on my computer? See, this one has a little cloud on it, and this one has a checkbox on it. The ones that are checked means that it is on your computer hard drive and a copy of it is in the cloud, and they're synchronized. At the tooltip, I can't move my mouse and because I'll get rid of the little tooltip here, but that little text that you see on the right at the bottom line, it says availability status, says available on this device. So that means if I'm not connected to the cloud, I can still work on that file. If I look at this one, it says availability status, available when online. They try and tell you things, you know, they try and tell you this stuff. You just have to look for it. Now, one of the cool things about File Explorer and Finder, and I'm going to show you in Finder after I show you this, is you can sort by anything. There's a sorting tool that shows up in View, and it shows up in Home usually, but View is a little easier. You can sort by the name, the status, the date it was modified, the file type, the size, the date it was created, authors. Usually you're the only author usually, so that's not used. And there are some other tools you can choose it ascending or descending if you want to. So if I wanted to see what was the most recent file I worked on, I can go click on date modified, and you can see here's the dates organized by date modified. Okay. If I wanted to sort by name, I just click name. Okay, so it's going to have the folders on top, then it'll put anything in numbers, and then it'll go in alphabetical order. So these sorting tools give you that ability to do things. One also nice thing is something called a preview pane. I like to look on files in a details list because it tells me more about what I want to know about the file. But some people prefer different views. But one view you can use is something called a preview pane. And you can select that. And if you click on preview pane and you select on a file, it will show you a preview of the file in the right. Okay, so it takes a second for it to show up from the cloud. Here's another one. So it'll show you a preview of the file. Okay, if it's just in the cloud, it takes a minute for it to get it from the cloud. But if it's stored locally on your computer, it'll show you a preview of that file. So if you have just text, that's okay. So you can not only see, if you don't have a good name for your file and you want to rely on what's inside the file, you can do the preview. If you have a file, like I'm going to go to my books file here. Let's see if I can find something better. Here's practice documents, okay? And if I have the preview pane here, and I look at something like this one, which is a PowerPoint set presentation, it shows you a preview of the PowerPoint. So it gives you, if that's, but you have the ability to customize your view of everything you might look at. So even on a large icons, you can see it gives you kind of the front page. It won't show you all the pages in a document, but if you have a multi-page document, it shows you the pages. So new folders, create folders. There's a button called rename that makes it easy to rename. You can copy the file or you can move it. Okay, and you can use these icons to move it. So if I click on move, it'll ask me, where do I want to move it to? But I found it personally just easier to drag and drop them when I know where I want to take them to. So if I want to move this file to something else, I can just move it to a different folder by dragging it over. You can see the little tooltip to the right of the mouse. It says move to GSU test folder, and I let go. If I wanted to move a bunch of them, I can click on the top one and hit my shift key and select a bunch of them and drag them all over and move them all at once. So now my practice documents folder is empty. I'm going to delete that folder, and then I'm going, because they're all in this test folder right here. If I wanted to rename the folder, I can click on the right and rename it, or I could have clicked on the rename, and I'll just call it GSU practice folder, okay? And now it's got a new name. So right-clicking gives you a little context menu that's very quick to work with. So right-clicking is handy, but dragging and dropping works on Windows. It also works on Macs. So let's go take a look at a Mac. Oh, by the way, if you ever want to undo something, there is an undo button and a redo button at the top here. So you can always say, gee, I really didn't want to do that. You can just click undo, and it'll undo the last thing you've done on your computer, your files. So if you make a mistake, just undo it. Okay, let me open up Finder here on my computer, and I'm going to share part of my screen with you. Let's see if I can make this work right. Okay, so what I've got to do is move a bunch of stuff out of the way here. And there we've got Finder, okay. So you should see Finder, and hopefully I'm sorry, does someone have a question, or is that?
Someone needs to turn their mic off.
All right, so what you're looking at now is my Finder screen. And I've got the menu on top here where you can see this is a Mac view. So I've got Finder, File, Edit, View, Go. This is in the upper left-hand side of your Mac window. But when you open up Finder, it opens it up automatically to a folder called Recents. Similar to a PC, there is a list of places on the left-hand column of your Finder menu, and it shows you recents first. If you don't do anything, it'll just automatically take you to recents. And recents shows you everything you have worked with, okay? Whether it's a document or a presentation or any type of file you might have worked with, okay? Now, you have folders. There is usually a documents folder on your Mac. There is usually an applications folder. There is usually a desktop folder, and there might be a folder called your name. You are a user on your Mac, and so Macs consider your information inside of your folder sometimes, and then you have other folders that you might have created. And if you have an iCloud drive, it'll show up here under iCloud. But you can also download and install applications like Google Drive, and you can install applications like OneDrive.
Bob,
Now,
I'm
yes,
still confused about okay, on the Word computer, what is this similar to? I haven't figured out what Finder is similar to on the Word.
okay. Windows uses File Explorer.
Okay.
Macs use Finder. Okay, and usually you find Finder in the lower left-hand corner of your dock, where it's a smiley face. Okay, so if you're using a Mac, you'll have a smiling face. That opens up, when you click on that, it opens up Finder, which is what they call their file system.
Okay. All right. I have it on my left of my screen, but again, I'll keep listening and maybe it will come clearer to me. Thank you.
Sure. Just like on when you've got favorite locations on the left, you have specific hard drives. Your hard drive on a Mac is typically called the Macintosh hard drive, but Macs will show you documents, your desktop, and a few other, and recents. It'll always show you that. Okay, I have other folders because I'll be working with a folder. Like I have this folder called GSU. I'm going to create a new folder. And the way I create a new folder is I can create it anywhere. But if I go to documents, let me go to documents here. And if I want to create a new folder, here's my GSU test folder 428. I'm going to create a new folder by going to File, New Folder. The menu is just a little different on a Mac. Okay, so I can go to File, New Folder, and it opens up a blank folder, and I'll call it GSU test folder for today. Okay, and then I can, after I name it, I can just put it in. Now, if I want to, I can move it to the left. There's nothing inside of this. Okay, but if I look at this other folder up on top here, I can click on that. There's nothing inside of that. So how do I find and move things around on a Mac? Well, if I go to something like OneDrive, for example, and I look at document, I'm just going around opening up drawers in my file cabinet. That's all I'm doing. And I have this document right here. I can literally drag it over to a folder and it'll move it there. Okay. So I can make a copy of it, move it over there, or I can copy it or move it. So with Macs, I have the ability to drag and drop things very quickly as well. Okay. So this folder is not one I want to use anymore. Okay. So I can put things and I can drag them around by dragging them up and down, or I can right click and I can tell where I want to go to. So I have the ability to move things around and change them in position just like I do on Windows. Now the icons look a little bit different here. So on the Mac, I have icons that open up information with this little three dots. I can create a new folder. I can move something to the trash. I can rename something, or I can, and I can do a few other things with it. I can sort files. by name in any folder. So the sorting icon, it looks different. I can change the view of how I look at my folders by clicking on these icons that changes them to different views depending on what I prefer doing. And I have the ability to turn preview on with view here at the top menu. So I can hide preview or turn preview on. So Macs just have exactly the same tools. They're just located in different places. So I can show view options if I want to, and it'll show me how I can view that file or folder. You can go into quite a bit of detail. So this is a folder on a Mac. It's a file. So this is a folder. This is a file. Okay, so anything that's in a folder, a folder view icon is in a folder. This is an icon view. If I go to a list view, here's folders and here's documents that are outside of folders. And I can go to a full screen view that just makes it really big. And I can scroll through things looking at them like this. But my personal preference is this view, but you can change the view of any folder you want to make it easier for you to find things if you want to. So it doesn't matter. The views don't matter. It's just a matter of what you do. And anytime you're looking at a file or a folder, if you right click, you can rename it or copy it if you want to. Okay. And so Macs use drag and drop a little bit more rigidly than Windows do. So on Macs, it's not always easy to move something with a command, but it's easier to move it when you drag and drop. Now in the Mac Intermediate class, we go into some really neat tricks you can do with Finder to organize your files and folders with things using like 2 Finder windows and other tools that are available like that. But I just wanted to give you an introduction to files and folders. But if you think of logically as your files as your files are like documents, and your folders are like paper folders that you have in a file cabinet, and your file cabinet is like your disk drive. So just like in the old paper systems, you've got a cabinet, you've got folders, and you've got pieces of paper and documents and other information. And those are the tools to use for organizing things if you want to organize them. And it's easier to do, it's easiest to keep things in a folder. Create folders often and move things into folders. Okay, so if you download something, you can leave it in downloads, but your downloads is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over time. But if you put something in, if you download something, look at your download folder and say, is this a picture? Is this a document? Or is it a project? Where do I want to put it? And, or is it a financial document? Put it into something. Like I keep a folder for the year 2021 and 2020. So I keep on doing those things.